Hey Sag, what is up? This is your 2025 predictions. I'm going to go through all of the major transits this year and how you can expect this to affect you throughout the year. I wrote these really for Sagittarius risings in mind, as well as Sagittarius suns, and to some degree the moon as well. So make sure you listen to all three. And of course, nothing beats an actual personal reading because then I can take a look at how this will affect all of the planets in your natal chart. So you can always book that with me at calmspirit.com, just like my last name, KALM, spirit.com. Let's get into it. So we're starting the year off with a Mars retrograde. It's retrograde in Leo, but it quickly re-enters Cancer on the 6th. Where it will stay until April 18th. However, it'll still be going over its path of retrograde, the shadow path. So I think we're really going to experience the effects of this transit that whole first half of the year. This starts out in your ninth house and then backs off into your eighth house. So especially with it in the ninth house, I feel like a lot of you guys are feeling frustrated about your beliefs, actually. So I can see like maybe a lot of you guys are getting into arguments with people about your beliefs, or maybe you feel like where you live is not aligned to your political beliefs anymore, or maybe it's religious beliefs. It could anything there's some sort of major belief system or thing that you were sure of that you feel like is being tested by others right now, and you're feeling kind of like passionate about it um during this time. So I see you kind of like getting into arguments with people, especially at the very beginning of the year, and then again around April, when this Mars re-enters Leo. So like mid to late April. I see you having such arguments. I would just tell you that I don't really think these arguments are worth it for you, honestly. With these kind of transits, people are not really listening. They're just talking to be heard. And so I think that this is actually a symptom of a deeper issue with you, which is that you have kind of changed internally, Sagittarius. You're kind of in a place where you don't really belong anymore. And you're going to see that as a general theme as I go through a lot of these transits. But I would just say that overall, I feel like you think your beliefs are being challenged or tested by people around you, and you seem very motivated to preach your beliefs to other people with love um as well. Now, Mars being retrograde in the ninth can also suggest going on some kind of trip. Maybe you do that here in the beginning of the year, or you could also be doing it around April, May as well. But you seem sort of frustrated by that for some reason, even also. So maybe you run into some people, some old neighbors you don't like or something there, or again, I'm just getting the sense that you're generally like disgruntled with your environment. Like you're just annoyed with the people around you. Now, most of this Mars retrograde is actually going to be happening in your eighth house. Okay. Now, that house has more to do with shared resources and finances. And so I think there might be some tension around that in your life primarily. Okay. So for some of you, this could present in many ways. Maybe you're in an argument with, a bank about a loan that you have with them or something, right? Or it could even be less practical than that. It could be that you're in an argument with people in your environment, neighbors or family members or something about like whose side of the fence are we really on or something. You know what I mean? Like it's just giving this vibe of um general tension when it comes to shared resources. Okay. So I think that a lot of you guys are going to be going over that. This could be you also kind of battling your own inner mind here, because this is a psychological house as well. So a lot of like kind of more difficult, darker psychological stuff might get brought up for you throughout the beginning of the year. I feel like a lot of fears might be coming up here. It's giving me a fear vibe, okay, being Mars in the eighth house here. So maybe you have some deep psychological fears that are really like being triggered here during this time as well. Those are kind of some of the main themes that I see you experience with that Mars retrograde. We also have a Venus retrograde. Both planets are retrograding this year, which is not typical. Usually it's one or the other that retrogrades, so that's kind of a bummer. But with that Mars retrograde, or I'm sorry, yeah, with Venus retrograde is more significant even than the Mars retrograde because it's starting a unique pattern, which it does every so often. It creates almost like a star pattern with the signs in which and the points of those signs in which it goes retrograde. And so it started a new one. So this is a significant one. So even though the actual Venus retrograde only happens between March 1st and April 12th, we are really going to feel the effects all year, especially the first half of the year. So it starts in Aries and it switches back to Pisces. So those rule your fifth house and fourth house. Okay. So with Venus retrograde in your fifth house here, a lot of you guys might be connecting with an old lover, or a past person that you've dated, or this could be also a business partner, maybe for some of you. Maybe they're one and the same for others. But either way, I do feel like some of you guys are sort of revisiting your childhood here somehow. I think some of you guys are really wanting to get pregnant, actually, or have a baby here, during this transit. I can see that happening for a lot of you guys. I see that sort of leading to tension for you later, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So be really cautious about that. But I do see like a desire here to just kind of revisit childhood or where you are from or something like that. Um, or maybe beautify or change your home in some way as well there in the beginning of the year. This is almost like a nostalgic feeling to this where it's like you seem like you strike me like you've been maybe unsatisfied with your home life for a little while here, okay? Because you've had Saturn and Neptune both going through your fourth house here for the last couple of years. Neptune's been here even longer, but especially for the last couple of years, I think that you have felt um like home is kind of a drag, like you're not comfortable there. Um and this is driving you to want to make some kind of change here. So I see you here in the beginning of the year really feeling kind of almost nostalgic for better times, or maybe some of you will even go back and visit maybe somewhere that you've lived before. Um or are just in the process this year of wanting to build a better home life for yourself. I do think a lot of you will do that when Saturn leaves this house, especially, which we'll talk about when we get into that transit. But I do think a lot of you guys are going to be finding that this year. So that'll be good for you because I think that you've been feeling over the past couple of years just like really unhappy about where you're living and with your home life. Um, and so this is a welcome change here. Now this Venus retrograde could also be you revitalizing an old business idea. So maybe some of you guys had some project that you were working on, maybe even back in 2020 that sort of petered off or didn't really go anywhere. And it was something that you maybe really enjoyed, actually. Like you got a good sense of like childlike wonderment and laughter. You know what I mean? Maybe there's something that gave you that feeling before, that you were looking at in 2020, but you kind of had to back off of. I see you revisiting that if that's a thing. For you. And I think that is a thing for most of you. I think that you will be revisiting maybe some old business ideas here and revitalizing that as well. Now, Neptune and Saturn are also going to switch signs this year. They're actually going to enter Aries together this year. Um, Neptune will enter first on March 30th, Saturn on May 24th. They will meet in the sky in what's called a conjunction on June 15th. What else is interesting though is that they will actually retrograde back out of the sign and re-enter again in 2026. So what I'm about to describe to you will affect you in 2026. Also, you're going to do a repeat of what I'm about to talk about. So like I said earlier, with Saturn and Neptune having gone through your fourth throughout 2024, you already know what you're dealing with for the very beginning part of 2025 here because it's the same. So even the beginning part of 2025 here, you just feel this general sense of kind of just like annoyance with your home life and like wanting to change it. Okay. Um, just feeling kind of not settled is the feeling that I get out of it. Yeah, I'm guessing that a lot of you do move or make some major change to your home life here because I see that changing for you, especially around like May. Again, depends on your individual natal chart, but somewhere in that last half of the year. But now the Saturn and Neptune is going to go ahead and get into your fifth house. So some of you guys are going to be wanting to have kids during this time. With Saturn here, that's going to bring some difficulties. Some of you might have difficulties getting pregnant, literally, and others it might just be a more difficult experience in that, for example, maybe somebody says they really want to be involved and they want to have this baby with you, and then they like change their mind later or something. That's just one way that I could imagine it could go. Okay. I feel like with Saturn here, it is going to end up being a bit of a drudgery for you or a lot of difficult work for you. So if a pregnancy is involved here, then it will most likely be a more difficult pregnancy for you, to be honest. Um, and maybe you'll feel less supported in it or something like that. You do have a lot of aspects here that suggest that you could find that support. So I know that you'll make it through that if that's the case, but I'm just giving you all the details so you know what you're really dealing with, okay? Because Neptune going through the fifth house is going to make romance very confusing. Go ask any Scorpio. I literally just talked about this in the Scorpio video because they've gone through Neptune and Saturn through their fifth house already. So when Neptune goes through the fifth house, it can make dating very shady. So maybe people aren't what they really seem. They could be outright lying to you, but sometimes it could be that there's just a misunderstanding. Maybe you romanticize them or vice versa, and you got into this whirlwind romance and it didn't kind of turn out as to like what you thought it would be. I think some Sagittariuses are going to be tempted into cheating or are maybe going to get cheated on even, honestly, with this one. So with Saturn going through here, it's kind of hard to have fun and enjoy your life, honestly. So while I do think you're going to get onto like a good front with liking where you live more or your home environment, I see you making changes that really help you there. I think you still feel though, um, a sense of indirection when it comes to business ideas and also just kind of feeling like it's hard to access your inner child and just kind of have fun and let loose with things. In regards to business ideas, a lot of times when Neptune is here, we have a lot of ideas and we're really obsessive about all of them, but we're not really doing any one of them. So Saturn is also here to kind of reality check you on that front and say like, you need to focus on maybe like one or two of these ideas and make practical moves to actually bring these into reality. Neptune and Saturn together can definitely make dreams come true, but it just doesn't always feel like a fun transit in a lot of ways, to be honest, because it is going to bring up a lot of it's gonna make a lot of the difficulties really obvious to you. It's not gonna, things aren't gonna just flow through very quickly, and it does have this very kind of confusing vibe to it. So just try to navigate that by being practical about it, and using kind of like a earthy vibe here of like maybe writing things down or like, you know what I mean? Trying to make a more legitimate plan, because I think that you can dissipate a lot of energy that way. Jupiter is also going to switch signs this year. So it starts out in Gemini and then it is going to change signs into Cancer in June. So Jupiter was already in Gemini throughout 2024. So you already know what that's going to be like. That is your seventh house of partnerships. So that can be really great for finding a partner here in the beginning of the year. Okay. A lot of you guys are already starting the process of coupling. Maybe you already met them last year and now you're going to continue that process with that person. This could be a good year also for you to do any kind of like business partnerships as well. All of these can be really beneficial with Jupiter going through this sign. Uranus is going to enter this sign around July. So take care of any kind of like paperwork, lawful agreement type of stuff in the beginning of the year. Okay. So if you have a lawsuit or something you want to file, do not file that at the end of the year. Okay. You want to do that at the beginning of the year. In fact, you might want to rethink filing it at all if you think it could drag on throughout the year because Uranus going to the seventh house is going to kind of knock all that back for you, honestly. So I do see you getting a lot of really great partnership opportunities here throughout the first part of the year. But I would really advise you to be cautious about which ones you really dive into and commit to because some of them are not going to pan out later. Jupiter brings a lot of stuff, a lot of opportunity, but it expands very quickly and it can really dissipate out and disappear really quickly as well. So really analyze these different opportunities that are coming your way, relationship offers, partnership offers, and so on and so forth. Um, Analyze those and nail down the ones that you feel most confident about in the first half of the year. Okay. Um, because then Jupiter is going to shift into Cancer, which is your eighth house here, starting in June. That transit will be pretty great though in a lot of ways. It can bring a lot of unexpected income for sure. So for some of you guys, maybe you've been waiting on like some sort of thing to close out. Maybe you had a court case already out that you've been waiting on to finalize, and when Jupiter enters the eighth, it does that and you get that payout. I can see it working out that way, for example. But Jupiter through the eighth is a good time to ask other people for money in general, honestly. So ask for like a loan or to restructure some debt, to deal with taxes, all of that kind of stuff could go pretty well with Jupiter in the eighth. I would just make sure that you stay away from the more lawful type of stuff. So like, let's say for instance, you have back taxes and I just suggested you go do your taxes and you go do but you do get a payout from that, but oh, lo and behold, now they realize that you haven't done these other back taxes, and when Uranus enters the seventh here at the end of the year, they start to come after you after that. So I'm using this example to illustrate to you that if there's anything though on that front that could be related to some sort of lawful case, then just be aware that Uranus coming into the seventh could bring some really unexpected uh shifts when it comes to a lawful agreement or arrangement. So just be prepared that way. But overall, I would say Jupiter through the eighth can be really great to maybe like ask for a business loan or ask a friend to help you. This might not even be like like money in that way. This could also be just asking for help generally. Like maybe this might be a good time for you to have a more like leveled conversation with a partner, for example, right? And be like, hey, this is really what it needs to be for me to feel like happy in this situation. Because I do feel like there could be some tension around who owes what, even though it's Jupiter, because it does square off with Saturn a few times here in your fifth house. So like I said, so let's say for instance, some of you Sagittarius do have kids, and then maybe you have arguments and tension later about who's doing what with the kid and who's helping out how or whatever. You see what I mean? Or perhaps some of you start a business project that starts to go really well and you get some funding for it, but then you start having disagreements with a business partner on what you're spending that on, for instance. Okay. These are just examples to show you ways in which this could manifest for you. Obviously, this will depend on your personal chart. Feel free to book a reading with me to find out how that really will work for you. But overall, I do feel like that could delay some payouts as well. So like if you were waiting for a payout, I think most of you will get that early on when it very first enters here in like June. But if you don't get it in June or like July here, then I do see there being probably a delay as Saturn starts to enter that Aries and square off with it as well. I think that'll actually delay a payout for some of you guys as well. So either way, there could be a little bit of tension around this subject is what I'm getting at. But overall, Jupiter through the eighth does suggest that you will ultimately get support and financial compensation of some kind here. So I see this ultimately working out for you. The eighth house is also the house of our psychology. So that's also a really good time, that last half of the year, for you to delve into your psychology, to overcome any kind of like psychological blockages, to understand maybe like why are you still single if that's the case, or why you're feeling the tension that you do. Really like getting to the root even of some of the tension that you may have with people about that, like those examples that I just said of you might have some tension with people around like kids or a business project or something. Some of that actually might have to do with healing your inner child, and I feel like you could get in touch with that here with Jupiter in the eighth. So good year to like try to delve into those sort of issues, maybe see a therapist or get a reading or something along those lines. I could see that really panning out well for you as well. Uranus is also switching signs. We've got a lot of outer planets shifting signs. So all the signs are going through major shifts this year. In your case, though, that's going to be happening in your sixth to a seventh house. So Uranus has already been in Taurus since 2018. So this first part of the year is not going to be any surprise to you because you've already been going through this transit. Uranus through your sixth house has brought up a lot of unexpected health issues for you, most likely since 2018. So some of you might have been trying to improve your health and well-being. For some of you guys, you might have had like a health crisis come up and you've like wanted to change your life to adjust to that. Some of you guys may have also had instability around like jobs. Maybe you've shifted a lot when it comes to relationships with like employees or coworkers, or just had really unexpected events around that. Like maybe you had employees that suddenly quit on you, for example, or something along those lines. This could be clients as well. So maybe you've had clients that have been kind of like really unusual. Maybe you suddenly have a new client you don't expect and then they disappear here. You know what I mean? Or you may just feel like your general routines and day-to-day life is always very like all over the place, like hard to predict. Um, and have a good plan with. Like you feel like you're always having to shift and change that. So you will continue to feel that through the beginning of 2025. However, it will start to change around July and start and begin its transit through your seventh house of partnership. Now, it will only stay here from July to November. However, Uranus usually takes about 7 years to go through a sign, and it will fully enter Gemini in 2026. So this will give you a sneak peek of what that will ultimately be like for you. So this will be a long transit, but ultimately when Uranus goes through the seventh house, it brings a lot of instability to relationships. So a lot of you guys are going to maybe go through some kind of like breakup through the at some point in the end of the year. For some of you guys, this could be about um just general instability to relationships, honestly. This could be a business partnership that breaks apart for you as well. So that's why I said you really want to take advantage of that Jupiter transit when it's in the seventh to nail down some good partnerships for yourself that you know will be solid because Uranus is going to test them as soon as it enters this house here in July. So try your best to nail down ones that you know are going to want to stick around. Stick to like really earthy people, maybe, or people who have good aspects in your chart. You can always book a reading with me on that too. I can let you know by synastry if people are going to really be reliable to you or not. But either way, Uranus here is going to change your status somehow. So if you're single, you could be getting in a relationship suddenly, like a whirlwind romance. For some of you, this will be more like a breakup. But there's definitely some major shift that you're going through here. I will also say that this could bring unexpected, eccentric people into your life on a positive note. It could work out that way for some of you as well, especially since it is also going to aspect Pluto. So I think for some of you, you may gain some sudden popularity actually at the last part of the year here. You may find your marketing strategies suddenly take off, or you just pop off somehow, or maybe a podcast you do or something gets popular, or definitely getting more social popularity vibes for you this year than previous years. So I can see that happening for you as well. Speaking of which, Pluto is also in Aquarius throughout the whole year. This year it entered Aquarius last year. It briefly visited it in 2023 before backing off of it. However, um, Oh, Pluto here is still very significant this year because it's at the very beginning degrees of Aquarius, which is where the Grand Conjunction happened. The Grand Conjunction was when Jupiter and Saturn met up in the sky, which they do every 20 years. And that started a 20-year long cycle for you in which you will unfold some massive destiny in that area of your life. And so for Sagittarius, that has been the third house. And so a lot of Sagittariuses maybe had some ideas on projects they wanted to do starting around maybe 2020. So this could be like a teaching projects, could be a podcast, a group, some kind of magazine or writing project, even a social media project. All of these things could apply. But I just get that you are really learning to be in touch with your own authentic voice and learning your own power, like of your voice, of how you communicate with people and how you can influence people. So you're very influential during this time, okay? Throughout the year, especially there at the last half of the year, I think that your voice is very powerful and it's really impacting a lot of people. For better or worse, I feel like it's impacting people the first part of the year, but it's causing more arguments for you. The last half of the year, it seems a little bit more positive. But either way, you are not used to having Pluto in your third house. So I'm letting you know right now that what you are saying is really causing a lot more drama than you might be realizing, depending on your own personal placements, obviously. Um, as as far as the severity of that, but all of you guys with Pluto through your third are really going through a long process. Pluto will be here for 17 years, so buckle up. You're going through a long process of really understanding kind of your own inner dialogue and inner voice and how that plays a role in how you communicate with others and how authentic that might be or how accurate that is to what you really want to say and so on and so forth. So all of those are themes. You also might feel like your environment has really changed for some reason, right? Like you might feel like maybe your neighborhood is suddenly very different. Maybe some of you may have moved or are in an environment that no longer aligns with you, like spiritually, politically, what have you. And there may be some frustrations for you around that. You might feel a little unsafe, some of you, even in a sense. I'm sensing kind of like a sense of fear there as well, for you guys. But Pluto here is and also maybe has really shifted or changed your relationships with certain people that are like considered your age or colleagues to you. So siblings, cousins, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers. You may have felt a major death and rebirth in that area of your life. And the truth, Sagittarius, though, is that you have actually probably changed a lot. So you just might not align with the area in which you are in anymore. I think a lot of you guys actually probably need to move or change your lifestyle in some major way. It seems like where you're at just isn't really working anymore. Speaking of which, the last thing I want to talk about actually is the North Node. The North Node's moving into Pisces on January 29th and will be there all year. Pisces rules your fourth house. So you've already gone through a difficult transit with Saturn and Neptune in that fourth house there. And so that's why I say you will definitely start to feel that dissipate. I feel like this year you're going to start to really align more with where you're really meant to be. A lot of you guys are going to move this year or early 2026. But you are overall starting to really align with where you really need to be. You may feel like you're taking a hit when it comes to your career or your reputation to do so. So, for example, maybe you do find a really great place for you to live that, is a better fit for the kind of lifestyle you want to live or what you believe in or something. But in order to do so, you have to take like a lower position or something, or you have to like build a new client base or whatever. And so you're feeling like you're kind of taking a hit that way doing it. It is totally worth it though. This is what you're meant to do. Um, it is ultimately going to lead you towards your home, your true home, where you're meant to be, like what your destined place, where you can settle and finally find peace. So I really see you finding that for yourself this year. Try not to rush that process. Allow it to unfold naturally, but don't be afraid of it. North Node can often feel like a sense of like, oh, I don't know, can I do this? Should I do this? You should. You should do it. Where you feel called to live and move to and maybe that isn't a move for some of you. That might just be changing something about your domestic life, expanding your family, or changing your home or moving home, or maybe adding an addition to your home. I don't know, right? Like there's some change that you feel like you need to make to adjust your life to be a better fit with your destiny, and this is your year to do that, and I see you doing that. So I hope this was helpful. Drop a comment. Let me know if this makes sense or if it lines up with what you expect to happen this year or hope to happen. Of course, you can always book a reading with me, as I said earlier, at calmspirit.com, KALM.com. And if you like this video, please feel free to like it, share it. I definitely appreciate you supporting us, and subscribe for more videos. I'm going to try to post these about every week. So make sure you stick around to get your updates, and good luck next year, you guys.